Where law enforcement sources tell CNN that a suspect has been taken into custody after a reported shooting incident at Florida State University.
CNN's Ryan Young is following these developments for us. Ryan, what more are we learning about the situation there at this moment?
Yeah, guys, we continue to work our sources here to try to figure out exactly what's going on. I can tell you around 12 o'clock, an alert went out from Florida State University telling students to shelter in place, that they had reports of an active shooter near the student union. And just in the last 2 minutes or so, we got an update from the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare that says they are receiving patients from that shooting scene as well. We believe 4 patients have been sent that way so far. I've also been told by a law enforcement source that I've talked to that the shooter has also been taken into custody. We're trying to figure out exactly the extent of injuries and what's going on. There is a massive police presence on that campus right now. Of course, Florida State, one of the largest universities in the state of Florida. The area that you see there is normally bustling with students. If you look at social media, you see dozens of students running. There have been reports of several shots being heard. We know the sheriff's department, the local police department, and the FBI all responding to that area to see exactly what's going on. We have not been told of what the disturbance and how it started just yet. We're hoping for more updates from officials. You do see the ambulances there and the first responders who've decided to go there. I've actually talked to an officer on scene. They were trying to get students from that student union area to safety. Once again, we're told 1 suspect in custody and at least 4 others who have been taken to the hospital. So we're trying to figure out the extent of these injuries, but you see the live pictures right there, the massive amount of police presence at one of Florida's largest universities. And of course, there's a lot of focus on exactly what happened in that student union area. As a person who attended that university, I can tell you that's usually the most active part of that campus. It's really the hub of that university. So many students, especially around that noon time, would be in that area going to lunch or between classes as they hang out throughout the day. So you can understand the amount of pressure that's on law enforcement to figure out if there's any other people who are involved in this. We do know, again, 4 injuries, been taken to the hospital, active shooter in custody. Boris and Erica, we're still trying to develop all our resources to figure out exactly what's going on at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We also want to bring in with us CNN law enforcement analyst Jonathan Wackrow, who's with us. So, as Ryan was just laying out for us there, and we see in these pictures this heavy police presence. We know of at least 4 people, according to Ryan's reporting, who have been brought in for medical attention. A suspect is in custody. That being said, there is this shelter-in-place order. We know a number of people are sheltering in place just from our own reporting as well. How long will it be? What will it take? I guess, what is that checklist to know that there is no longer a threat on campus?
Well, listen, good afternoon. This is a stark reminder that really just underscores the dynamic and unpredictable nature of these horrific events. As Ryan was saying, how active the school university is today and where the shooting location was around the student union is the nucleus of the school. It draws a lot of attention by students and visitors alike. By example, just look at the school calendar, the event calendar. There are dozens of things scheduled right now that are ongoing at the school that are bringing people there. So it's a very densely populated environment. And law enforcement knows that. That's why you see such a significant response by federal, local, and state officials to respond to this. And that response is really focused on 4 key areas to prioritize how law enforcement is responding to these active shooter situations. First, they want to stop the active shooter in progress. And the good thing here is we know that we have at least 1 suspect in custody. We don't know, though, if there are other threats that are out there. Police will quickly work to ascertain if this was a lone actor or if this is a more coordinated attack. The second key thing is rescue victims. We heard that there were victims that were sent to the hospital. We don't know their condition, but it is a priority of law enforcement that after they address the primary threat of the active shooting, that they rescue the victims and provide medical assistance. And the fourth is they need to preserve the crime scene. We don't know how large this is, but if this shooter was moving about buildings and throughout the campus, we may have multiple crime scenes that that are in place, and law enforcement needs to secure those for any items of evidentiary value. So there's a lot of things that are going on simultaneously with the law enforcement and medical response right now. But from what I have seen and what has been reported, the response and communications that is coming from law enforcement has been almost textbook, a rapid response. They activated their active shooter protocols. Everyone knew their roles and responsibilities. I'm sure that the incident command structure that is typically established for these type of critical events is in place, and we should be hearing more from law enforcement shortly about the current status of the threat.
And we are hearing more from FSU, the university putting out a statement on social media just moments ago saying continue to shelter in place. Police have responded to an active shooter call at the student union. They go on to say that all university classes and events scheduled for the day have been canceled. We also have with us retired FBI Special Agent Rob D'Amico, who is following the news alongside us. Rob, I wonder, when you consider what an active shooter at a student union looks like, because there have been so many shootings at institutions of higher learning over the last few years, a lot of these soft targets, as they're called, have been hardened up. But I wonder what you imagine the security is like at a student union at a school the size of FSU.
It's just so hard to secure. I mean, it's students walking in, they have backpacks, they have things that, you can hide a gun in, that you're not going to be able to search everything. So again, when you look at what you can secure, you can't secure everything. You can have really good procedures, which I think the last commenter talked about, is they reacted well. And the thing is, with universities, with their police departments, they go over these. They do tabletop exercises, and you can start telling now that they all understand the different roles and responsibilities that have to get brought in immediately to this. I think one of the big things is we saw with the Chapel Hill shooting that they did not get word out quick enough that someone was in custody, and you started having students actually jumping out of buildings. So hopefully they tell them to stay in place, because that helps the organization getting witnesses and looking at locking things down, but doing it uniformly and how they do it, but at least telling students that someone is in custody, so they're not panicked and doing things that are actually more dangerous than sitting where they're at. Because that happened, and I think that was one of the after action reports. And I know all these universities are talking to each other that have shootings, and when they do tabletop exercises and when they review their policies, that they're getting input for the last ones that happened and best actions that were taken.
We also want to go back to Ryan. I'm going to go back to you. I understand you have some new information about what we're learning. What more are you hearing at this?
And I want to say this, coming off that last commentator, which is basically, let's not forget, FSU had 3 people shot back in 2014 at the library. This is a university that's paid special attention to trying to deal with active shooters. So just like you said, the massive response there, it is close to the Capitol. I was talking to one of my friends who's on scene there at the student union, and he was actually the source telling me that he was following a blood trail because there was some sort of blood trail that was leading away from the student union. So they are still trying to assess this as we are talking right now, trying to figure out all the pieces and to make sure they have all the victims here. There are a lot of terrified students. Even in the phone call that I had, you could hear people in the background rushing by who were very upset, obviously trying to get away from the scene. So when you add all the pieces together and you know that it's near the state capitol, it's a large university, it's dealt with a shooting back in 2014 before, you can see why there was a massive response, and B, how they got the alerts out very quickly at a campus that's really the lifeblood of that city. When you think about the presence of Florida State, how large it is, and how many people who graduated from that university in that area, there's so many people who work for that university. This really put the entire city on pause when something like this happens.
Important context there. We actually have sound from a witness, a student, who shared what they saw. Let's listen.
How are you feeling right now?
Like nervous. I'm scared for my friends. I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon.
And you said you weren't on campus when the shooting
No,
happened?
I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
Yeah. So what's going through your mind seeing that your school has had a shooting?
Honestly, I just hope everyone's okay, and I hope that we can just do better precautions so this doesn't happen again. And I just feel awful for the students on there having to go through these emotions right now, dealing with scared for their lives, honestly. It's really scary.
And you said you had friends on campus at the time?
Yes, right now. They're still on campus. They're on lockdown right now.
And you've heard from them, they're doing okay?
Yep. Texted them. They just said they're scared, they're in lockdown, and they just want to go home.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just hope everyone's okay, praying for the people that are injured, and I just hope we can do better in the future.
All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you.